Nice to meet you, Gwen. How is the weather in Pueblo? Woo, woo, in the LSCs. All right now, really fun. Welcome. Awesome, you all. As due to the fact that we are on stolen land, I want to provide the CSU Spur land acknowledgement. Please, let's watch.
I'm Ty Smith, Director of the Native American Cultural Center at Colorado State University. As the CSU system breaks ground on the Terra and Hydro buildings as part of the CSU Spur campus in Denver, I'd like to share the CSU land acknowledgement. But before I share the land acknowledgement, it is important to emphasize the relationship between land and people. Native people recognize that everything has a spirit: plants, animals, insects, mountains, and water, which brings us together today. Tuo eina, which in my language means water is life. Native American identity is deeply tied to these, and they are referenced and respected in our culture, creation stories, healing ceremonies, and celebrations. Please keep this in mind as you hear the land acknowledgement. Colorado State University acknowledges with respect that the land we are on today is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations and peoples. This was also a site of trade, gathering, and healing for numerous other native tribes. We recognize the indigenous peoples as original stewards of this land and all the relatives within it. As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties nations have to their traditional homelands are renewed and reaffirmed. CSU is founded as a land-grant institution, and we accept that our mission must encompass access to education and inclusion. And significantly, the founding of institutions such as ours came at a dire cost to Native nations and peoples whose land they are on today. This acknowledgement is the education and inclusion we must practice in recognizing our institutional history, responsibility, and commitment.
Thank you all so much for joining me in that. Just to provide clarity, we are in nurturing dialogue strategies for sustaining open communication and understanding in conflict. We will be using restorative thinking to shape our environments. I work for Denver Public Schools, and these are our culturally responsive education mindsets. Today, we will really be focusing on building relationships, cultivating meaningful and maintaining meaningful relationships, as well as learning conditions, co creating safe, harmonious, joyful, and equitable learning and working environments. These are the CRE mindsets in Spanish, and I will provide y'all with the agenda. So we just went through the land acknowledgement and our CRE mindsets. I will then introduce myself and provide you all with the learning targets for this session, and then we'll get into an icebreaker. We will then analyze the impact of polarization. We will learn ways to enhance our communication skills, and then we will implement a relationship repair strategy, also known as the relationship repair framework. Who is Joy Jackson? Who am I, the person speaking to you today? My name, like I said, is Joy Jackson. My pronouns are she, hers, they, them. And my core values are excellence, diversity, and freedom. I carry these with me throughout my life. I am a second generation educator, really third, because I believe my grandparents were teachers in their own right. I grew up in Southern California, moving to Denver 5 years ago. And my goal ever since I became an educator almost 10 years ago has been to be the voice for students and now adults through times of conflict, hardship, and ways to self advocate. I'm so happy that folks are sharing their names and where they're from. Please provide also your core values and and how you're holding those things as we move forward. Because I see we have folks in here like my mom. Thanks, Suzanne. Hi, Coral. Hi, Gwen. Hi, Emily. Thank you all for being here, and let's get started. Our learning targets are to analyze the impact of polarization, enhance our communication skills, and implement repair strategies. Why are we having this session today? Communication is essential part of our lives. It's important to understand not only the barriers that folks have, but also the different entry points and solutions to create and maintain effective communication. So in this session, we will discuss those barriers and entryways and how to address microaggressions and bias. As we go through this process, as we go through this session, I want you to keep this question. How can understanding and addressing polarization, empathy, and relationship repair enhance? How can understanding those things enhance our ability to communicate and collaborate effectively in the academic and professional settings? This session is not designed to assign blame to other humans. This session is not designed to assign shame to other humans or to focus on the who or implement irrelevant strategies. If you're hearing something from me, you're like, Joy, that doesn't apply, then don't do it, right? This session is designed to be a learning space for all, provide a framework for implementation, and open the door for deeper team, staff, student communication. And I will pause here to see if anyone would like to add or say, actually, I have a question for this event. Hi, Heather. Hi, Jack. I'm going to give us about 20 more seconds. Kalila. If I'm saying your name incorrectly, please correct me, but hello to you as well. Awesome. I'm going to move us forward. Thank you for agreeing to follow our norms. For our inclusive welcome, I will play our 2-minute timer. As we look at these babies, as we look at this class, this is actually the class of 2037, which is wild to say. Type into the chat, what do these babies need? And we'll have 2 minutes. Oh, okay. So Kalila, that's a beautiful name. Yeah. So what do these babies need? And if you need some thinking and some prompting, I firmly believe that these babies need confidence. So I would be providing them with the skills to build confidence. Yes, I see loving, understanding, encouragement, opportunity, patience, love, support, and encouragement. Amazing validation. Yes. Keep them coming. Joy. Yes. That J factor. A safe environment, protecting their physical, spiritual, and mental well being. Amazing. Thank you. Having their needs met. Yes. Stability. Absolutely. Safety. Yes. What else do these babies need? Food and shelter. Absolutely. Education. Yes. Community and friendship. Absolutely. Keep them coming. We got about 40 more seconds. Okay, a future. Yes. Freedom from fear. Yes, Heather. Yes. Let's keep pouring into these babies. What more do they need? We have about 20 seconds left. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Good models for living well. Oh, and Coral, thank you so much because I'm going to drop us there. Space to make mistakes. Yes. Allowing their voices to be heard. Yes. Our babies need all of those things. And as those babies become the class of 2037, right? They grow into adults, they grow into young adults. They still need those same things. The adults that we work with used to be these babies sitting in front of us. The adults that we work with need the same opportunity, patience, and love, the same stability, the same access to a future and community and friendship, the same space to make mistakes and to learn. Let's take a pivot into understanding polarization. Joy, what is polarization? What are you trying to say? It is defined as the tendency to look at the world and describe it in terms of extremes. Now, why is this a problem? The reason being is polarization further divides communities. Contributing factors to this division in community is a binary thinking, echo chambers, misinformation and disinformation, and high stake environments, essentially that othering that happens in silos in our workplaces. I know I have been guilty of essentially of always being in an echo chamber, right? I often feel like I'm sheltered from different experiences because I try to stay in my lane. However, staying within that framework adds to the polarization within my community. All behavior is communication, meaning your personal knowledge fuels how you enter your environment and how it enters into your behavior and vice versa. Albert Bandura in the social cognitive theory really maps this out. If we are to believe that, for example, women are less than, which is something I do not believe, that is going to I like shape how you show up in an environment. And if your environment reflects those same values back to you, your behavior will suggest that you believe that women are less than. And vice versa. If you have an environment, for example, when you enter a new job that is all about the hustle and bustle of urgency, which we all know can be toxic, that's going to change your behavior and influence your personal knowledge to believe, hey, in order to be successful, I need to be busy. In order to do this, I have to ignore my friends' phone calls. In order to be in the places I want to be, I have to prioritize this. All of us come to spaces with this kind of theory working in us. We have our personal knowledge, our behavior that we can control, and how that contributes into the environment. And as leaders of our communities, as leaders of our buildings, we need to think about the environment that we're shaping and how that informs others' personal knowledges and how that may be affecting their behavior. I'm going to pause here. Is there any questions? Please type them in the chat. I am going back and forth. I would like us to engage in an activity just kind of to see how you all feel when it comes to polarizing the community or community building. I am going to click through some statements and I want you in the chat to identify them as PC. Are they polarizing the community, or are they CB? Are they community building? Social media is more harmful than beneficial to society. Is this polarizing the community? Is this PC? Or is this CB? Is it community building? Amazing. Yep. You all are correct. This is polarizing the community, right? We're not trying to take a different lens and approach to what social media can be. And it doesn't seem like the person who would be saying this would be open to other dialogue. The education system needs a complete overhaul to better prepare students for the future. Now, is this PC or is this CB? Okay. I see some CBs in the chat and I want to explore more. I wish I could have y'all to like unmute and stuff. This would actually be PC. As collective as folks, I can see the folks who said CB. It's because you are organized in creating space and understanding and sustaining a future that is free from white supremacist values in our education system. But that's not necessarily what this statement is sharing. This statement is just being like, hey, we need to overthrow education, man, because students are better prepared. How are we going to do that? Exactly. Mr. Scott, I'm going to say Mr. Scott because I do not want to mispronounce your name. um, this prompt can totally be a transformative education effort, but in the context that we're doing where we don't have the context, this is maybe something you're hearing at a water cooler. This could be polarizing. Some people may have aunts, and like myself, I'm a second generation educator, who have educators in their family or are an educator that very much believes in the system, not necessarily that they're trying to uphold, but the systems that they're trying to create within their own classrooms and school communities. I've noticed many of us have similar book interests. How about we start a book club? Is this PC or CB? CB. And I also want to just provide the caveat. Oftentimes, like we talked about with echo chambers and things, we want to be careful with just only focusing on the similarities within community. It is okay to highlight differences. I would even make this statement even stronger, being like, hey, for the book club, why don't we all just choose a book and each month we'll have a different lens and point of view? Climate change is a hoax. Is this PC or CB? Yes, this is PC. This is polarizing the community, right? Because there are some people who very may well believe that this is a hoax, and there are people who their family members are actual scientists working towards, you know, um, eliminating a lot of the climate issues in our society. And finally, let's share our skills with each other. I could teach a cooking class, and I know someone who can help with ed tech. Is this PC or CB? Exactly. This is CB. Again, also focusing on the differences. Hey, I don't know much about technology. So I could teach us how to cook and throw some spices together. And I cannot go into the different AI uses or software that's needed for our job. And maybe we can grab someone on board. Amazing. Oh, sorry, not finally. It would be great to have a community potluck where everyone brings a dish to share and stories to tell. Is this CB or PC? Exactly. This is CB. We're all bringing together, we're celebrating community. And these are the conversations that you want to hear happening on your school campus or in your office building. As we continue to think about and chew on polarizing the polarization within our communication, another part of building our nurturing dialogue and creating the environments that we want to thrive in is developing empathy. There are two types of empathy. There's cognitive empathy. This is the ability to recognize another person's feelings and perspectives from a non-judgmental analytical high place. So for example, a manager would often engage in cognitive empathy strategies when in a one-on-one with their student. Somebody said PC if I come across the wrong dish. Yes, that is true. um Back to cognitive empathy. Sorry, y'all. I had to pivot to that because that was very funny. Cognitive empathy is a very useful skill, especially when you are trying to co regulate with someone who's going through a difficult time. In order to effectively implement cognitive empathy, it involves perspective taking and analysis of how you're coming to the table and how the environment in itself is working. And like I shared, non judgmental understanding. This may be something different from your lived experience at that school and that community, but it's okay to listen and take in their perspective. Then we have emotional empathy. This is the empathy that most folks think of when we say the word empathy. It involves actually feeling another person's feelings. This is a more emotional response that involves intuition and connection. This is something that tends to happen between educators and their students because they have a very strong bond. Also, too, to very close colleagues, emotional empathy is very much needed when not necessarily just through co-regulating in the power dynamic between a manager and a coworker, but also when your student has been going through a rough time with FAFSA or There is a teacher that you have been mentoring who just can't seem to get it and the notes aren't hitting. This is a time to now step out of that cognitive empathy space and go into emotional empathy. Now, there are some potential barriers, aka doors to empathy that get shut, right? How someone was raised, how they were treated when they had emotional needs, what folks taught them about emotion, and the messages they received about the value of emotion are all barriers to empathy. That past stuff, if you are an Erica Badu listener, you would know the song Bag Lady, you go with your bag. If you have all of this on you, having empathy towards someone who is in a different situation for you may be a little different because of the baggage that you're carrying. The fear of becoming overwhelmed with another person's emotions or being stuck in emotions with another person is also a door that very much gets slammed. I'm actually currently reading Trauma Stewardship to kind of open up my own doors because I'm noticing, as a restorative practice practitioner, I'm involved in a lot of trauma, and sometimes it's harder to bond with folks because I'm trying to save my peace. However, if a door closes, a window's gonna open, and we have these potential entry points, like putting aside your viewpoints, using your imagination to try to get into where they are, to listen intently, and to be curious. We don't know everything. I like to pretend like I know everything, but I don't. And that's okay. When I start to engage in these strategies, especially the be curious portion, I'm noticing I'm not taking on someone else's feelings. I'm attuning myself to what they need, and I'm flexing my style to fit their needs. And finally, try not to fix. I saved this one for last because, as educators, as folks who are in the weeds and who are at the CSU Office for Inclusive Excellence, we all want to find solutions and fix the problems. Sometimes, when it comes to just communicating and creating connections with others, we're not here to fix. People are not problems. The problem is the problem. And oftentimes, especially when dealing with adults, we just need to listen. They just need someone to vent to share that moment with them, and then we move forward. Here are some responses to try to implement empathy in action, right? A few of my favorite responses are: your feelings and experiences are valid. Sometimes that's all you need to say in a situation. I hear you. Another one that I really love is, this has been a lot to handle. It is okay to feel overwhelmed. Let's take this one step at a time. And then I'm going to co-regulate with that person. We're going to breathe. We're going to share in this experience, and we're going to ground ourselves. Type in the chat what are some strategies or responses that you would like to try, or a response that you've heard that you're like, wow, that was an empathetic response that I did or someone gave to me that I would love to share in the space. You can type in 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Yeah, validating feelings. Yeah, number 4, you seem upset. If you like to talk about what's going on, listen. Number 5, but really all of them, yes, I'm just here to listen. And I also want everyone, as we're typing these things into the chat, to notice that yes, you bring yourself up, but not in the place to fix, not in the place to nurture or like be that savior. You're just there. You're just a human being, and you're humanizing their experience, which feels so great. Gwen, that's exactly what I asked for. Asking if you need to vent or you need help problem solving a solution, asking for consent before providing those things are amazing. Yes, anything that affirms their feelings in response to their experience. And on that note, I'm going to move us forward into navigating these challenging conversations. What are the strategies, tips, and tools from my research as a restorative practitioner that I've picked up to navigate these challenging conversations? Common pitfalls are unregulated participants do not show up to a conversation still upset. If bringing up the fact that Brenda has ate your lunch every day for the past week is still upsetting you, maybe don't go to the mediation meeting today. Maybe be like, hey, we have to reschedule while I regulate, right? True intentions are unknown. Oftentimes, we like to do this dance around difficult conversations where we're actually going to meet about the data we collected in quarter two, and then we never talk about the data collected in quarter two. This is more of a performance review. And now I'm on edge because I came to talk about the data, and it seems like I'm the data. When we have these difficult conversations, we want to ensure that everyone is on board, everyone knows what's happening, so that folks can truly show up as their authentic selves and respond from a place of understanding and not defense. Apathy as a result of disconnection. We meet all the time, and these meetings don't necessarily bring any growth from me. And when I do raise issues, they are silenced or pushed off. So our folks start to lose trust and they become apathetic. How do we de escalate when we can sense these things? I can sense that the participant is still angry. Maybe they haven't advocated for themselves well, or I called this meeting and something else is coming up. How do we de escalate? Take a breath. Take a breath. If you're noticing someone's getting angry, my coworker PJ D'Amico always calls them a stop and drop. You can stop a meeting. I'm giving you all permission. Stop it. Let's all take a collective 3 breaths. Think through empathy. Use those talking points that we just recently discussed and be like, hey, what is in their bag, lady, that they could be holding on to right now that's stopping them from engaging with us truly? Ask the bold question. Do you want to be here? Because it's okay if you don't. Do you feel connected to the work anymore? Because it's okay if you don't. And building the trust between each other. I see Cynthia brought it up really well. Trust between each other to ask that bold question. Table it and come back. Stop and drop. Hey, y'all. I feel like we're talking in circles. So we're going to meet again next Wednesday, and so we have some time to cool off, get back into our regular routines and regulate, and we'll try back again. Stick to the intention of the meeting. The unknown true intentions are the worst and destroy trust, is what Cynthia said, and it is correct. If the meeting's about the data in quarter two and you notice that Joy didn't do what they were supposed to do, we're going to table that piece and we'll come back to it another time. We're here to talk about quarter two. Stick to the intention of the meeting. If the intention of the meeting is just to talk about what happened between myself and Dr. Prime, that's my mother. That's all we're going to talk about, what happened between Mary Allison and myself. We're going to keep it to what we talked about. Any questions about navigating the compass, the common pitfalls, and the strategies for de-escalating? I will move us forward. I love the permission to table it. Yes, I'm giving you that. And if you have someone's like, I don't give you that permission, be like Joy Jackson did, and I trust her. So just table it. It's okay. We can come back to it. Addressing unconscious bias, because this is something that really polarizes the community. This is something that really puts us in difficult conversations. I was actually having this conversation with my brother-in-law a few weeks ago that, hey, a lot of folks don't want to ask the bold question. They don't want to have the conversation, and yet the feelings fester. I'm going to give us some talking or some points to let those feelings no longer fester inside of us. We need to raise awareness. Okay. As leaders, you all have the power to source out people like myself, like other practitioners that you've seen at this lovely symposium, to provide training on recognizing these and mitigating unconscious bias. That should be a priority for folks in your buildings. You want to implement inclusive practices like blind resume reviews or structured interviews, right? What intentional questions that are you using during your hiring and promotion panels to ensure that the folks that you're keeping in the building are honoring and upholding the practices that we want to see. I remember when we asked, what do babies need? Someone said that they need models for proper morals and to do good things. So do adults. And if you hire folks that are bad models, then that's what's going to happen. You want to foster that open dialogue. So have the time and the space to encourage your staff and or your students to share how they're feeling in your classrooms, in your buildings, in your meetings. You want to model unbiased behavior. That's where the reflection piece comes in. That's where it comes into just really think, oh, I came into this with a whole different perspective, and I realized I was shutting down Dr. Prime when I said that, and I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that? Right? Heck, I love having a journal. My journal is actually right here. And I journal after every meeting, just 2 minutes. How did I feel? What did I learn? And what is something that I can grow from? And then hold people accountable. Address the comments or the actions as promptly and consistently as you can. I recognize you cannot be everywhere at once. I recognize that you may not catch everything at once, but do what you have within your power and empower your employees and students to say, hey, this affected me this way, and then take the steps to address it. Addressing microaggressions. This is a big one. Like I said, you want to address it directly, but you want to avoid accusatory language. The reason why you want to avoid accusatory language is because if the goal is for this person to recognize their wrongdoing and then grow from it, we cannot put them on the defensive. So, a best way that I have noticed in my conversations through restorative conferences and coaching is saying, hey, that comment or action came across as a little, stereotypical. And it didn't feel as if you were really thinking about centering Black voices. And then you explain that impact. Statements like this can make Black students feel invalidated and uncomfortable in your class. Then you suggest an alternative. A more inclusive way to phrase that activity would be to blank. And you always, someone said, ask them if they can do that. Ask them, hey, do you have time for feedback? And then go through these steps. Follow up later if needed, and then check in to see if the behavior has changed. Now, I want to share this. Explaining the impact should not always fall on the people impacted. We need to do our due diligence as folks committed to being anti-racist, as folks committed to renativizing. I don't like saying decolonizing. I like saying renativizing. Renativizing our environments. We also need to do the work as folks who are white or straight or heterosexual to do the research, the training, the unlearning, to also explain the impact for those who may not be able to do it for themselves. That is my challenge by choice. That is some homework that I leave with you all. However, I wanted to share that not everybody who's impacted has to always explain and call out and address the microaggressions. Any questions? Yes, we will have time for feedback at the end. Oh, do you have time for feedback? You were quoting me. Okay. Um, awesome. Now we're getting into our final activity, which is repairing relationships and rebuilding that trust. Now we've done the thing. Dr. Prime shared with me that my feelings were harmful. Now, what are we going to do to repair? In order to have these repairing conversations, all parties that are impacted must be present. Like sharing earlier about intentions and the true meaning of the meeting, we are not trying to exclude folks just because we don't feel like they're ready to have the conversation. We need to build up their capacity to have it. So if there are folks who are like, hey, this has been happening to me, and Jackie, Jessica, and Rachel, and all, we all feel the same way. Myself, Jackie, Jessica, and Rachel all need to be at the meeting. It should be in a neutral space of the building. Do not have these conversations in your office. Do not have these conversations in your office, you guys. That is a space of like tense. It can mean anything. Things could completely escalate. You want to have them in a neutral space, like a conference room. If you have a calm down space, maybe over there, just in a neutral space. This can be in a circle format using a talking piece to share the power of speech. Like I said, I'm a restorative practitioner. Circles are my thing, but I'm not trying to teach y'all circles today. However, using the circle format to disseminate power by using a talking stick like this piece of tiger's eye can really help um, ensure that folks don't get talked over and that everyone's voices can be present and heard. Involve co-regulatory practices. Stop. Pause. Hey, y'all, I'm noticing things are getting a little tense. Let's take a collective breath. All right. 1, 2, 3. Let's take another one. Even doing just some light, just like let's refocus our energy, and let's even just do some box breathing. Let's do a yoga pose. Let's do a power pose together, because we are here to uplift each other and foster each other's growth. Also in shared breathing, there's also intention setting. Why are we here? Why are we having this meeting? The relationship framework has 6 steps. The first is acknowledge the breach. Okay? Openly recognize the conflict or the breakdown in the relationship. You want to validate that person's experiences and avoid defensive language. I hear you, Dr. Prime. I hear you when you said that I was belittling you. I want to validate that and see where you are coming from. If you can't validate that, just say, can you please share more? I would like to know how this is impacting you. Not to find, oh no, but I didn't do that, or no, 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 no. We're not trying to look for that. We're not getting into the weeds. This person feels how they feel. Next, you take responsibility. Maybe it's not in the same conversation, but you just take some time. Hey, I hear you, Dr. Prime. Let me go and reflect. I didn't even see myself doing that. Could you give me a couple days to think about it? And then you apologize sincerely, or just repair. If you're the person who keeps eating lunches in the lunchroom, maybe you just buy lunch for the office. It doesn't necessarily have to be an apology, right? And then commit to making amends. I will no longer take lunch. I will actually talk with my partner about buying my lunch or opening my budget. Do things like that. And then you want to seek to understand. You want to actively listen to their concerns, because that's why they're bringing it up to you. They're not trying to get you in trouble. They're not trying to make you feel bad. They're concerned and they need to share their experience with you. Like I shared earlier, ask clarifying questions. I didn't know that, this was the only time of the day that you ate because of your fasting rituals. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have eaten your lunch. And avoid interrupting or forming your response while they're talking. Actually listen to what they have to say. You want to find common ground. This is where you're like, you know what? I remember that. I grew up fasting with my family and I can understand those hunger pains. Oh, I'm so sorry. I work with you all of the time, and I really want our relationship to be copacetic. You want to express that mutual desire, and then acknowledge that this is really complicated. You may want to just say, I really didn't know that and I'm ignorant. I have a lot of places to grow, right? And then you collaborate on a solution. What could I do to make this right? Or what could I be doing in the future to avoid situations like this? Regularly check in on this person. If you're going to have the conversation, check it, maybe become an accountability buddy with them. Hey, I noticed in the last meeting that you weren't looking as famished as you were. Have you been buying your own lunch? And I'd be like, yes. I've been going to Trader Joe's and getting the single meals and put them in the freezer. And that's so much easier than trying to hide and do, Kim Possible moves to steal people's lunches. And then rebuild that trust. Consistently follow through on commitments. If you said you are going to be there at 8 o'clock, get there at 8 o'clock. Now, being a human happens, but that also means advocating. Hey, I know we said 8, but my son threw up all over my outfit, and so it's really going to look like 8:15, 8:20. Is that okay? Be transparent and communicate openly. If you're really trying to foster trust, letting your true intentions be known is how that trust is built. And then it takes time. Just because you had a restorative conversation, let's say you hired me to come out there and I'm fun and we have our conversation and it feels great, they still may be feeling away. And that's okay. It takes time for relationships to repair and to heal. Well, you all, I am going to ask you all to now take some time to practice what we've been talking about for the last almost hour, 45 minutes. In the chat, there are the note catchers in English, Spanish, and Arabic. Please pick the language of your choosing, and you will be put into breakout rooms. In the note catchers, there is the scenario at the top and then the relationship framework at the bottom. My ask for you is to read through that scenario and either ascribe yourself as Miss Garcia or Mr. Garcia or Mix, or Mr. Wilson, Miss Wilson, Mix Wilson, a recent hire. And then you and your partner are going to have this restorative slash reparative conversation using the relationship framework. Are there any questions before you are all sent out into breakout rooms for the next 20 minutes? Awesome. I think we can start sending folks into breakout rooms. Awesome. We should have folks coming back in. And I'm gonna keep us rocking and rolling. Would anyone like to share in the chat or in the Q&A space how role playing this conversation, or even if you went off script and provided an area that you would like to restore, how did that go using this relationship repair framework? It felt really easy because I didn't have any emotions involved. Okay. And so I think maybe like another practice, and there is homework for this session. Oh no. But another practice would maybe be thinking of a solution where a situation where emotions are involved and still find a space to regulate and then have the conversation. Would anyone else like to share their experience? Awesome. I'm going to move us forward. So, what we discussed today were communication barriers can exist because of lack of clarity. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Being able to share why you're doing it, what you're doing, and what you hope come from it. Absolutely. So throughout this presentation today, we analyzed the impact of polarization by talking about the definition of polarization and the factors that contribute to it. We discussed the social cognitive theory and identified polarizing comments with a little caveat, right? Some can be polarizing and some can be community building. We worked on enhancing our communication skills by furthering the development of empathy and discussing the doors or windows, the barriers and entry points to empathy. And then we talked through navigating difficult conversations and addressing unconscious bias and microaggressions. We then practiced the relationship repair framework. Our homework for you all is to implement monthly dialogue circles within your department or grades, to just practice skills and address current issues. And this could be, if even if you have nothing to talk about, I think that's a good thing, right? Maintain a journal. Like I shared with you all, I have my journal that I spend maybe at the most 5 minutes. How did I feel after that interaction? What did I gain from it? And what can I improve? And then peer coaching, reading books like The Art of Coaching or Arise by Elena Aguilar has been really helpful in furthering my team's development of peer-to-peer coaching, as well as starting a book club. I put that in there because I think that's a really great way for folks to stretch their thinking and their minds. I highly recommend The Four Pivots by Dr. Sean Ginwright. Literally, that book has changed my life. I listen to it now on the treadmill. It'll be my third listen next week because I'm taking a break from it. But it's such a great book to just kind of pivot your thinking. Here is my information. That is Joy Jackson, JOI_JACKSON at dpsk12.net. That is my office phone number, 720-423-3200, extension 53512. I will leave this up and we will spend the remaining 9 minutes of this session answering questions and receiving feedback from you all. If you have other things to do, thank you so much for joining, and I hope to hear from you in the future. So yeah, questions, feedback. Yeah, thank you all so much. Are you going to share the slides? I I can. Um, I believe indicate it or share that with our folks at CSU, and I believe they'll send these out. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can you recommend the staff going to a place where they're ready? Yes. How do you how do you recommend getting staff to a place where they're ready for a restorative practice process? It takes a lot of training. I think one, they need to know what restorative practices are. So having someone like myself, if you are on the CSU campus, you have a literal wealth of knowledge on campus. Dr. Tom Kavanaugh, who leads that, and they could train your staff. Yes, I can put the book recommendations in the chat. Arise by Elena Aguilar. Oops. Aguilar and Four Pivots by Dr. Jun Wright. And then I am so sorry. Wow. I have like a little squirrel brain. To get your staff there, get them trained on what restorative practices are, and then once they kind of have an understanding and a foundational knowledge of what restorative practices are, then it's just practicing small circles that can be just getting to know each other, how to use the talking piece, co-creating the norms for your circles, and then opening the staff up to having a restorative conversation. But having the buy-in and the understanding is the first step. Yeah. And sorry I got off track there. I saw the comments coming in. I was like, oh, okay. And yeah, those are the book recommendations. And then yeah, Elena Aguilar, she's actually, I believe, at CU Boulder. Um, and is now like on a tour, but she's an excellent resource. Thank you. This was so great. I'm so excited, and I hope to come back next year and do another session. Are there any questions or things that they would like to add? I see I have to add tunes with touch points to my presentations. Absolutely. That's why I have animations. Animations are very much my crutch to get me to slow down and like hop in there. Yeah, thank you, Jessica. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you all so much. Have a great night.